The 2023-2024 NFL season is officially in the past. Super Bowl 58 is behind us. The bottom line view is already on to 2024, and I hope you are too, because in this video, I'm going to rank every single NFL team entering the 2024 NFL offseason, projecting the best teams in the NFL, the worst teams in the NFL, and everywhere in between for next season. Here in February, I'm going to project who's going to be good in next February. So if that sounds good, don't forget to spike the damn like button. Make sure to get those likes up. That's the only way that the algorithm knows that you guys are enjoying the BLV content. So now more than ever, I need you to spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more NFL content just like this. All off-season long, I'll have you covered with everything from free agency to the draft, player rankings, tier rankings, and more. We are live, so I want you guys to get in that comment section and let me know how you feel about my rankings and where you agree and you disagree. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Waste no more time. Let's get into it. Let's share the screen and let's start tier ranking some teams. Okay. Shout out to the people in the chat. We got Caesar. Some guy named Tyler Drake. Where you been, bro? And Sing in the chat. Thank you guys for joining. Let's go. Spike the like button. All right. So we have our categories as always. We have the Super Bowl favorites category, meaning the teams that are most likely to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. The contenders category, which is the teams that are going to likely be in the playoffs, in my opinion. The teams that have a chance to be a Super Bowl contender, have a window that is available to make a run, but they're not necessarily the Vegas favorites or who everyone will bet on to win the Super Bowl or pick to win the Super Bowl. Playoffs is the third category. Teams that I think probably will make the playoffs. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I have a feeling that they'll make it. Dark horse, teams that I think could be playoff teams, but also are a little bit spicy. You know, like they have a little bit something to them where I could think they could really go off and have a special season in 2024. We've got the mid, which is the average teams in the NFL, and the trash, which are the worst teams in the NFL. So now that you know the categories, let's get to it. Let's rank these teams. We start off with none other than the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, Derek Carr is still the quarterback. They do have a new offensive coordinator in-house, so that's interesting. Big problem for them last year was definitely offensive scheme was very vanilla, very kind of just needed to freshen up, right? Needed to take a shower, get some of the dirt off. Needs to take another shower, to be honest with you. And then when you're talking about the Saints, they do have a couple of receivers that I like, Olave, Shaheed. Offensive line-wise, they're average. They do need to maybe get a little bit better on the defensive front in terms of adding some pass rushers, some key pass rushers over there on that side of the ball. I do think that Alvin Kamara is slowing down. He's not the same player he used to be, so the running game is up in the air and inconsistent. But a lot of that will come with the scheme and the offensive line development. In the secondary, they're still strong. They do have a number of older players that they might want to move on from, trade, potentially let go. We'll see. I've been begging, praying that the Saints start over for years. It has not happened. I think that the Saints are very likely to be a mid team this year. I think they're not terrible. They're not good. They have a chance to win a weak division next year. But still, I mean, there's nothing really about this team that is super sexy to me. So I put them in the average mid category. The Miami Dolphins. Just the unique sense about Miami right now for me, the sixth sense, is that I think Miami, and I guess I've kind of been this way the last couple of years, but I feel like I'm a little bit down on Miami after the season they had in terms of the result at the end. It felt like they were about to have a really good season, and then they just completely fell apart. And now they have quite a few free agents. The offensive line is a mess. Can we really count on Tua to be healthy for another season? I don't know. Tyreek Hill's another year older. Jalen Waddle gets hurt in every single game he plays and then somehow comes back. Mostert's a year older. Armstead is still on the roster a year older. This team just loves signing players that are hurt. The defense has a new defensive coordinator, no longer Vic Fangio. He's in Philadelphia. The defense does have talent like Jalen Ramsey. I like the cornerback duo. I like the front. We'll see what they do with Christian Wilkins. I just don't know what to think about this team. I love Devon Holland as a talent, but I feel like the Miami Dolphins might regress this year. I think the overall AFC is going to be stronger, and I don't think Miami's offense is going to be quite as great because I think teams have sort of figured out how to play them and specifically how to stop Tua. So I'm going to put Miami into I don't really want to call them like a dark horse because everyone kind of sees them coming. They're maybe a playoff team, but I don't necessarily see them as a playoff team. So maybe this is bold. But I think I have to put them in the mid category. I don't really see another category. I think they might miss the playoffs. Now, if you think they're going to make the wild card, I understand this category. But I'm going to put them in the mid category, bro. I don't know. I think Miami has fallen off this year. The Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens were the best team in the AFC this year, and even Chris Jones said that they were the best team in the NFL. They did not play their best in the AFC Championship. But the question remains about the Baltimore Ravens. Will they ever get over the top? Will they ever do it? Will they ever accomplish a Super Bowl ring with Lamar Jackson? And I do like Harbaugh and Lamar. I do like overall the direction of the offense, although I thought that the offensive game plan for the AFC Championship was pathetic. I do think they'll have a very strong defense, although they have to sign a couple players. Right? I think Geno Stone is a free agent. Madubuike is a free agent. Madubuike, I don't know what you call him nowadays. Patrick Queen is a free agent, so they've got a couple key pieces that they want to retain. But they could also get better through the draft, younger through the draft, maybe better at pass rusher, edge rusher. They have a very strong secondary, some key foundational pieces, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey. But they did have some key contributions from veterans like Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney. Offensively, they've got a pretty good offensive line. A couple pieces are getting a little bit older, like Morgan Moses, Ronnie Stanley, Kevin Zeitler, who's also a free agent. The receiving core, honestly, should get better because Zay Flowers, I think, is going to be a stud, but he's still growing. And the rest of the receiving core, I mean, I don't know if Odell's going to be back. I think they could add another young receiver there. They could utilize a running back. Gus Edwards is a free agent. I think this team's probably going to take a step back in 2024. I don't think they're going to reach the AFC Championship. If I were to project it right now, I don't think they're going to reach the Super Bowl. I could be wrong about that, but I do think Mike McDonald is a significant loss, and I think, honestly, they missed their opportunity last year. I think they're going to need another season or two to rebuild this thing up back to a Super Bowl type of team. So I'm going to put Baltimore into, I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't necessarily see them as a Super Bowl favorite. Maybe I'll move them to the contender category, but I'll put them in the playoffs right now. I think they'll make the playoffs. They have Lamar. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but I don't necessarily think they're going to win the Super Bowl. The Cincinnati Bengals are next. My sense with Cincinnati is they're going to be back to what they were previously right now, but I also have something in the back of my mind that says that maybe they're not going to be a Super Bowl team. I think they do have quite a few holes. You look at the way their defense played last year. Their defense is flawed. DJ Reader is a free agent. The secondary could be without Chidobe Awuzie or another corner that could start. Now, I do think that they've done a good job of replenishing the talent at the corner position. I think DJ Turner could take a step up. I do like Cam Taylor-Britt a lot. I think Mike Hilton can still play. They do need some safeties. I think they could get better there. Linebackers are intact. Edge rushers are intact. No worries there. But they need to worry about interior defensive line, safety, corner. So those are some positions they need to get better at on defense. They still got Big Lou as the defensive coordinator, which I think is key. The offense will still be ran by Zach Taylor, which is key. They've got to worry about what's going to happen to T. Higgins. Are they going to re-sign him? Are they going to franchise him? That is a huge question. If they keep him around, well, this team still remains a true contender in the AFC. If they let him go, maybe they replenish the talent on defense and they try to utilize that money for the defense. That could also be worthwhile. Joe Burrow will be back, but back from an injury. The offensive line is average. Could maybe get better, but I'm not certain about that. Jonah Williams, the right tackle, is a free agent. The Joe Mixon apparently might be let go. I wonder how that will work out. I thought Mixon actually had a really good year last year. Jamar Chase is still a stud. Tyler Boyd's also a free agent. So they've got a lot of questions to answer, which makes the Bengals a really tough one to answer overall. I kind of feel like, once again, they're sort of between these two categories, contender and playoffs. I thought that the Bengals this year, if they were fully healthy all the way, they probably could have competed with the Chiefs and the Ravens for the Super Bowl in the AFC. I'm going to put them in the contender right now, but I don't know. I could swap these two teams. I think this could go either way here. I think that Cincinnati, if they can keep T. Higgins, they'll be a contender. If they could keep DJ Reader, they'll be a contender. But there's some questions that they have to answer this offseason. Denver Broncos. The Broncos, honestly, they're between these two categories for me, mid and trash. I kind of see them as a trash team, but I don't necessarily want to put them there because I have too much respect for Sean Payton. So let's discuss it. So Russell Wilson, is he going to be the quarterback? I don't necessarily think so. I feel like the defense started to play better at the end of the year. Their edge rushers and their front seven as a whole is very lacking talent. They could utilize a lot of draft picks and free agents to those positions. I think their secondary is solid, but they need a lot of help up front on defense. The offensive line is good. Cortland Sutton had a great year last year. Javonte Williams is a solid running back. Jerry Jeudy's been disappointing year after year after year. They do need a new quarterback. And that's going to be just a huge question for them. Maybe they'll trade up and try to get one of these rookies. So I think the question mark at quarterback's really going to make this team a rebuilding unit in 2024. I think they tried to go all in last year with signing a bunch of free agents on the offensive line, trying to bring in some players from free agency to help them on defense. But I think they tried that with the thought that they could fix Russell Wilson. But I think the idea that Russell Wilson is washed has now set them back a season or two. So I overall lean to Denver being trash, not necessarily getting the first pick in the draft, but probably being the worst team in their division. So I have them in the trash category. New York Giants are next. The Giants are intriguing. I think that there is a debate because they made the playoffs last year, but they missed this year, that they could improve. But I also just don't see a lot of talent on their team. They need a number one receiver. They might even need a number two receiver. Darren Waller was, I think, an awful trade. He really proved to do nothing for them. Saquon's a free agent, likely will be gone. The offensive line has maybe 2 to 3 key pieces, but Evan Neal hasn't proven to be good at the right tackle position. Andrew Thomas is good. The center is good and young, but they need to fix their guard positions. Daniel Jones is mid at best at quarterback. Brian Daboll I like as a coach. I think the defense has some nice pieces. Dexter Lawrence. I think that Thibodeau's good. McKinney is good. I like the young kid at cornerback. But overall, this team is just I don't know. I don't see them being great. I don't see them being awful, but they're somewhere in between these two categories for me. I definitely don't see them on the level of Miami, but I don't see them on the level of I kind of see them on a maybe similar trajectory as the Saints. I'm going to lean towards the trash category, but I might be able to move them up later once I sort this all out. The Minnesota Vikings are next. Guys, if you haven't already, Gronk, spike the like button. Let's get those likes up. Minnesota Vikings are next. This one is completely dependent on does Kirk Cousins come back or not. Kirk Cousins is obviously huge, but I also wonder about how this team will compete in this division, because I think the Bears very well could improve this offseason. I think they can improve at quarterback. I think they can improve on offensive line. I think they can improve their defense. So the Bears could be better. The Lions and Packers, in my mind, are good teams already. And the Vikings have a very flawed defense that's propped up by coaching. The offense is very talented, but it's completely dependent on if Kirk Cousins signs or not. If Kirk Cousins doesn't play, then they're a trash team. But if Kirk Cousins plays, I think they're probably mid. Because I could see a world where they're fighting for a playoff spot, but I could also see a world where they're just not quite talented enough to even compete in their own division for a top 2 spot. So that's why I put them in the mid category. I like their offense. I have respect for their coaching staff, but I don't see enough talent on defense, especially if Danielle Hunter ends up walking in free agency. So I'll put them in the mid category. The Rams are next. The Rams, I would put in, I think they're a good categorization of a dark horse. I think the Rams got a little fortunate this year due to the fact that the NFC was so weak, and they capitalized on that, even despite the roster talent, especially on defense. I think the problem with the Rams is they are too dependent on like 5 players. They have Stafford, Aaron Donald, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and a couple young studs on the defensive side of the football that they found in this draft. But like, this team could be really good if Stafford's healthy, plays at the level he did last year. They could be a really good team. They could be a really explosive offense. They did lose their defensive coordinator, which was one of the better ones in the league, in Raheem Morris, at taking less than stellar talent and making them better. Sean McVay is one of the best head coaches in the league, one of the best offensive minds in the league. They will have a top 10 offense as long as they have their quarterback. They have a very balanced offense. They have 2 awesome receivers. I think they could improve their offensive line, their tight end position. I think their defense could use a lot of work. But they finally have a well-orchestrated draft picks and class coming up. So that's intriguing. I think the Rams are a borderline playoff team, and if they make it in the playoffs, they are going to be very, very compelling. So I got the Rams as a dark horse. They're building something on defense. They've got stability on offense. They've got a great quarterback. Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, it feels like Baker's going to be back. It feels like Mike Evans is going to be back. I'm not sure about Levante David. Devin White could go, and I don't think that really matters, to be honest. Antoine Winfield, they need to figure out his situation from a contract standpoint. The offensive line could use some improvement, especially on the right side of the offensive line. Everyone other than Tristan Wirfs is a little bit of a work in progress. Rachaad White really became the real deal. I think Cade Otton's a solid tight end. I think they've got enough pieces on offense between Godwin, Evans, Palmer, Otton, White. Baker's a decent quarterback. I think the defense is solid, not great, not bad. I think Bowles is a decent coach, but like he's more dependent on an offensive coordinator, and Dave Canales was really good for them last year, and now he's moved on to Carolina. That could be a significant loss for them. I kind of view Tampa Bay as mid, just based on, I think they could make the playoffs and win their division, but I'm not necessarily certain. I don't know if Baker's going to play at the same level, but again, the division is very weak, so I don't really know. Next up, Detroit. I think Detroit should be in the Super Bowl favorite category. Maybe this is bold. I don't know. And yes, it's certainly bold saying that the Detroit Lions are a team that should be in the Super Bowl favorites. Or maybe you could put them in the contenders. I'd respect that as well, and we'll see how this turns out in the end. But putting a team with Jared Goff, you have to have a lot of faith in the overall structure of the team. What I like about this team is they brought back all of their coaches. Their offensive coordinator, their head coach, their defensive coordinator. The key being Ben Johnson is back. Jahmyr Gibbs becomes a second-year pro. He'll, I feel like, only get better, and he'll probably have more involvement in the offense. He is a stud. Sam Laporta is a stud. Second year. Jamison Williams, third year, and really his second year because he barely played as a rookie, and he showed improvement throughout the course of the season last year. The offensive line is really, really good. They do have one or two free agents, but they should maintain a really strong offensive line with really good tackles and a really good center. The defense, I think, could improve. I think that the corners could get better. I think that the linebackers, Campbell in his second year, will improve. I think the defensive line could get better. So I really don't see a lot of key free agents that they need to recover and sign. I think that they can overall build upon what they were last year, which was an NFC championship team. And they pushed the Niners to the brink. So I really feel like the Lions are going to be in contention for a Super Bowl berth next year. And it'll be up to Jared Goff. It'll be up to the additions they make in the offseason. I really need them to get a pass rusher, get a corner, and that could turn their defense into something to be reckoned with. But I have them as a Super Bowl favorite, maybe a contender. Chicago Bears are next up. The Chicago Bears, I think, are between mid and a dark horse. I think the route they'll go is they will go with Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams has a chance to be really good right away. I'm not going to say he's going to be an absolute CJ Stroud type of prospect right away, but I do think he could be at least as good as Justin Fields, if not better, right away. I think that the offensive line could improve. I think that the offensive coordinator position could improve. They brought in a new one with Waldron coming into town. The defense was very strong by the end of the year. I really like what they built by the end of the year. I felt like the defense was one of the 5 to 10 best in the NFL by the end of the season. They were very good against the run. I think Jalen Johnson will be back as their number one corner. I think they could add another defensive end. They still got plenty of cap space. They could add another receiver. That might happen. I could see, I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna put Chicago into the dark horse category. I really think that there is a lot of potential with this team because I believe in their defense. I believe in Matt Eberflus and what he's done on that side of the ball, and I believe that their ceiling is very high. This might be a bold take, but I overall like the structure of the roster. I think the offensive line is underrated. I think their run game is solid. So I like the Bears quite a bit. I think they're a dark horse caliber team. Maybe they're more mid, but I'm going to go with the bold take on this one. San Francisco is next. The 49ers are Super Bowl favorites. Clearly, they're pretty much bringing back everybody. They do have a couple of free agents more so in role player situations like Chase Young. But I do feel like I've already made the video. The Niners very well could improve upon the team that lost in the Super Bowl in overtime. Brock Purdy will have a full offseason to operate. Brock Purdy is going to have a full offseason to learn this offense with Kyle and get better mechanically, physically, stronger, all that stuff. So Purdy going into his third year is going to be big. I think the offensive line could really improve given free agency. A lot of players will want to play in San Francisco. I think that the draft, they'll probably draft a guard or a tackle early. So the offensive line could improve from a pass blocking unit that was not great. They still got Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey, and they'll have all the skill positions remaining as the number one offense in the league. They'll probably be top 3 or 5 next year once again. The defense, I think, will add a better defensive coordinator than they had in Steve Wilkes. I think that they'll be better schematically on defense. A lot of their players are still in their prime. I'm not worried about them aging. Hufanga comes back. So there's a lot of reason to believe the Niners could be just as good, if not better. So I have them in the Super Bowl favorite category. Big L's Philadelphia Eagles are next. Shout out to all the people joining now. Gronk, spike the like button if you haven't already, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Eagles. I think the Eagles are between like a playoffs or a dark horse situation. I'm going to be honest. I haven't looked too closely into who the free agents are for this team. I worry about a few teams, or a few things with this team, I should say. I worry about their age on defense still. I worry about the secondary and the improvements they need in that category. I worry about the linebacker position. They need to improve there. I worry about safety. I think the D-line will still be good. I think they have some foundational pieces with Hassan Reddick, Jalen Carter, and I think this is an area where they could be improved based on coaching with Vic Fangio. I think will make them a lot fundamentally better, fundamentally more sound, a better unit overall. Jalen Hurts is a good leader. I think he can steer the ship in the right direction. I'm not convinced that he's an elite quarterback. I think he's a good one. I think he dealt with injuries. The offensive line is really good, but Jason Kelce is probably not going to be back, right? So you can't really lean on that veteran presence at center. They need to fix their offense in terms of they were really good under Steichen, not so good last year. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are awesome. Dallas Goedert's really good. Hopefully DeAndre Swift comes back. They've got a lot of talent, but they're also aging in some spots. I have questions about the offensive coaching. I have questions about Jalen Hurts. I think they're between these two categories. I'm going to say dark horse for now. I might move them up into the playoffs, or I might move the Rams into the playoffs. I'm between those two. I really feel like people, though, are going to be sleeping on the Eagles a little bit just because of how depressing the end of their season was. But that also gives me alarm bells that they could be definitely better this year with some improvement from the coaching staff and things like that. So the Raiders are next. The Raiders, as of right now, I think they're trash. I don't want to say that. I like the Raiders. I like when the Raiders are good. I don't want to be hating. But I have my questions about Antonio Pierce being the head coach. I have my questions about who the quarterback's going to be. I have my questions whether or not Devontae Adams is even going to be back or if he's going to be traded. I love Max Crosby, but I think their defense pretty much performed at peak this year when you look at the talent that they have. I like the vibes. I think that they can be an average football team, but I don't really see a lot of potential or upside for this team outside of what happened last year. I think they'll play hard, they'll be competitive, but I don't necessarily see it. The offensive line, especially in the interior, is a little flawed. I think that the running back might be different. Josh Jacobs might be gone. Yeah, there's just like a lot of questions with this roster, questions with quarterback, there questions with head coach. I don't like the fact that their roster isn't that strong, and then you can't really rely on a strong quarterback or a strong head coach. So I have to put them in that category for now. The Green Bay Packers, probably one of the teams that I'll be pushing the propaganda a lot this offseason. But I think the Packers have a great opportunity to be a contender next year. I think the Packers can be explosive on offense. I love what I saw from Jordan Love last season in terms of late in the season, in the playoffs, late in the regular season. I thought he looked dynamic as a passer. He really got comfortable in Matt LaFleur's offense. It will only help to be a starter in the system for another offseason. I think that Aaron Jones is still a dynamic and awesome running back. The offensive line is always good. That's Green Bay's thing. They've got two functional tight ends. They've got a plethora of receivers that are young. Hopefully Christian Watson can stay healthy with that hammy this year, and that would provide them a steady presence along with Reed, along with Wicks. I think that is a dynamic receiving core. Romeo Dobbs had a great playoffs. Defensively, I think their front seven is really good. They're aging maybe with Preston Smith and Kenny Clark, but Kenny Clark is still really good. Rashawn Gary is awesome. I think Van Ness is a player. I think that Wyatt is a player. Campbell and Walker, I think, is one of the more underrated linebacker duos. They changed their defensive coordinator, which I think was the biggest move they needed to make. I think they need to improve their secondary. Not even sure that Jair Alexander will be back, but if he is, he's still good. The safeties need some work. They need to improve there, but they're pretty good at drafting overall. They'll utilize their picks, I think, to improve the secondary. And I think this team could really take the next step next year. I think that their run and their ability to smack the Cowboys wasn't a fluke. Their ability to stay in the game with the Niners wasn't a fluke. This is a talented roster with a young, budding star at quarterback. The Commanders, I'm going to put them in trash without question. The Commanders don't have a quarterback. I think that they're going to be going young at quarterback. The offensive line is horrible and needs a lot of work. Their receiving core is talented, and that's probably the best area of their team. Tight end is a question mark. Running back is mid at best. Defensive line, they've got 2 really good defensive tackles, but the edge position, they don't have any good pass rushers because they traded them. Linebacker position is suspect. Corners are young, maybe on the rise, but not proven commodities. Safeties are fine. Kendall Fuller's a free agent. They don't have a number of big-name free agents. At least that's a positive. They have a lot of salary cap. They can spend a lot of money. This could definitely change. Maybe they go out there, they sign 2 edge rushers. They sign a corner. They sign a corner and an edge rusher. They sign a linebacker. They go out there and they get an offensive lineman. That could all change things. The draft, Drake May could be amazing, or whoever they end up getting in the draft, Jaden Daniels. And this could totally change the prospect of this franchise. I'll have a better idea later in the offseason, but right now I view them as one of the worst rosters in the NFL, and there's a lot of work to do. The Cardinals are pretty much the same, but I'm actually going to put them in the mid category because this is why. Kyler Murray, first of all, is too good of a quarterback for them to be awful. I think that the offensive line is pretty good. I think that they will probably get a receiver or a top upper echelon defensive player in the draft. They have lots of draft picks. The defense is a work in progress, but I think that Gannon, that's his side of the ball. I think he'll try to sign some pass rushers, some front 7 players. The big problem for me with the Cardinals is they play in probably the best NFC. That NFC West and the NFC North are the best divisions in the NFC. And the NFC West, I currently see 3 teams with just as much talent, if not more talent than them. So that makes it really hard for me to put them into the playoff category or the dark horse category. But I do see them as like an average team. I think they could win like 7, 8, maybe 9 games. Because I think they could have a really dynamic offense and a really fun up-and-coming defense. But I still think they're a year or 2 away from being a playoff team. So I'm going to put them in the mid category. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are interesting because I don't think they currently have their quarterback on their roster. I think they'll be going out and trading for Justin Fields, trading for Russell Wilson, drafting a quarterback. I don't think Kenny Pickett is their guy. I like their running backs. I think their receivers are pretty good. The offensive line is decent. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. Their defense, there's some guys that are getting older there. But I also like, TJ Watt is probably the best defensive player in the league on average. The defensive line still got some good pieces. Alex Highsmith. I think that the linebackers performed pretty well. Minkah Fitzpatrick's one of the best safeties in the NFL. Porter looked really good as a rookie. I think the Steelers could be a playoff team, but I also think they could be mid. They're somewhere in here. I'm going to put them in the dark horse for now, and then I'll maybe adjust it a little bit later. The Buffalo Bills, I'm going to put the Bills in the playoff category, but I could also see them as a contender, and this is why. First of all, Josh Allen is, arguably the second best quarterback in the NFL. He's arguably the most talented quarterback in the NFL, and he's the biggest one-man show in the league, and pretty much can take a bad team and make them look good, which he did this year, I thought. The offensive line is actually intact and really good. The receiving core needs work. I think they could use a number 2 at the very least. They could also trade Stephon Diggs, which would also maybe give them back some resources to add to this team. Tight end, I think Kincaid will improve. I like Dawson Knox as a number 2. I think James Cook's a really nice running back. So they've got some nice pieces on offense, and they're all really there. There's not... Gabe Davis is going to be a free agent, but thank you. I mean, like, leave, bye. The defense, I think their corner position could be one of the best in football next year. Rasul Douglas will be back. Tre'Davious White will be healthy. Benford, I'm a fan of. Teron Johnson, I'm a fan of. I like their corners. The safeties are getting older, which is a concern. Hyde is a free agent. Will they bring him back? The linebackers, Matt Milano will be back, so that's big. I don't know if he'll be the same player, but he'll be back, and I like some of the other pieces. The defensive line, they've got the two best players returning in Rousseau and Ed Oliver, but the other pieces, there's a bunch of free agents across the board. They have to do something with Von Miller's contract. AJ Epinesa is a free agent. Daquan Jones is a free agent. Leonard Floyd is a free agent. But they can figure out, signing a guy to a one-year contract. They do that every year, it feels like. So they'll figure that out. I don't think they're in cap hell by any means, and they still have Josh Allen. So, you know what? I'm actually going to put them in contender just because I think they're clearly going to be the best team in their division. I don't see Miami or the Jets or the Patriots contending with the Bills in this division next year. So I'm gonna prop them up to the contender category because I have faith in Josh Allen, and I actually think the offensive coordinator switch for a full season will also be good as well. So I'll put the Bills there. Atlanta's next. That is tricky. Because I really don't know currently who I think is gonna win the NFC South. If I had to guess, I'd probably say it would be Atlanta. So I'm going to put them in the playoff category just because I think if they get a decent quarterback, I think that they'll probably make the playoffs. I like their defense enough. I like Raheem Morris as a coach, and I think he'll do good with the defense. I really like that they brought the McVay offense to town. I think Bijan will be great. I think that Drake London is a good player. If I had to choose a playoff team right now from that division, it would be Atlanta. It's borderline between Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa. Now, I will say I did pick Atlanta to make the playoffs last year, so I was wrong about that, but not by much. The defense, I still think they can improve, but it really is about finding a quarterback. Who's that going to be? Justin Fields? Is that going to be Kirk Cousins? Is that going to be Russell Wilson? Is that going to be a rookie? Is Mac Jones? I don't know. Who is that going to be? It can't be Desmond Ridder, right? So they've got to figure that out. But I think that overall as a team, they have the makings of being a playoff team. So I'll put them there for now. Not a lot of confidence in that. Seattle, I view as a dark horse. I think that they're a borderline playoff team. And again, I'm going to move this around at the end. Seattle, I think, should have been a playoff team last year. I think their coaching let them down. Pete Carroll, it was clearly time to move on. They did the right thing. Mike McDonald, I think, is going to get a lot more out of this defense. I think that Geno Smith is being underrated right now. I think he's a solid starting quarterback. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's bad. He's solid. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, really dynamic receiving core, awesome running back in Kenneth Walker. I like Charbonnet as well. The offensive line could improve. They definitely need some pieces on the interior. The defense needs some pieces as well at pass rusher. But, I mean, like, the Seahawks are not that many players away from being a really good team next year. So I see them as a dark horse. I might move the Rams up to the playoffs, but we'll see what happens here. The Patriots are next. My Patriots. This is interesting because I think that their defense makes them competitive. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback, so that also hurts. I don't know if it's going to be a rookie, which just a rookie could struggle no matter what. But honestly, I think the offensive staff, they made some improvements. They have a lot of salary cap. Their offensive line should be able to improve because of that. They have a lot of salary cap to spend on a receiver. There's a lot of receivers in free agency. Honestly, the offense can't get any worse. The quarterback can only get better. Honestly, the defense will probably be very good. So I have New England in the mid category. Call me biased all you want. I see them about 6 to 8 wins next year, probably, if I'm projecting right now. Because I think their defense will steal them some games, and depending on what the quarterback can give them, I think it will change the range of what they can be. The Cleveland Browns are next. Cleveland. I don't like Cleveland really going into next year. Honestly, like I maybe it's just me being sour on Deshaun Watson. I think the guy is an ass, and I think he sucks. But that being said, the offensive line is awesome. They actually have every single starting player on the offense returning, which is something I can't say about every team in the NFL. I think almost no one else. The defense is really good on paper and should be healthy again, but they also do have some free agents like Zadarius Smith comes to mind. I do like the coaching staff, Stefanski. I like Schwartz. This is tough. I think they're a dark horse. I don't want to put them in the mid, but I think they're a dark horse. Just because, like, what is Deshaun Watson? I think Nick Chubb will be back. That's also big. They did acquire a lot of injuries. So, yeah, that kind of has me saying, like, they'll be a dark horse team. Like, they could be a wild card type of... They could be bad. They could be good. They could be really good. But I don't really know. So, I think that makes them a dark horse type of team. The Texans, I have clearly in the playoffs. I'm not sure if they're going to be a contender or not, but I have them clearly in the playoffs. I disagree with people that think they're going to miss the playoffs. I think CJ Stroud is way too good for them to miss the playoffs. He is so good at football. The offensive line will, I think, probably get better. They have a ton of cap space. They have enough draft picks to utilize. The young players, I think Tank Dell will return and probably get better. Nico Collins, I think, will be back. They have a lot of pieces on offense. Bobby Slowick is back, which is huge. The defense, I think, will add a piece or two to get better. D'Amico Ryans is a great coach. I really believe in this coaching staff from top to bottom. So I have them as a playoff team for sure. Not sure about contender, but playoff team for sure. We'll see what they're able to do in free agency. If they can go out there and steal Chris Jones from the Chiefs, or go out there and get a big-time playmaker on the D-line, or maybe go get a running back like Saquon or Josh Jacobs. That would be nice. But I think that the Texans are a playoff team. The Chiefs, I think you have to put them as a Super Bowl favorite. They don't have too many free agents. They do have Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, Willie Gay, some big pieces, but I don't think, like, this team has proven their track record. This team has proven their legitimacy and consistency. I don't think that's going anywhere. They've got the best quarterback in the game. They've got the most proven, consistent coach in the NFL. Kelsey should be back, although, I don't know if he's going to be a year older, a little bit worse, but hopefully they go out there and get a receiver, you would think, rather in the draft or free agency. The offensive line will still be great, and I think it could get better depending on what they do at left tackle. Pacheco is still solid at running back. I don't think they might go out there and try and get like a third down back to replace McKinnon, who's getting really old at this point for the running back position. The defense, I think, maybe takes a step back. Like, that's kind of the realistic situation I think Chiefs fans have to expect, is like, I don't think they're going to be the same defense they were in the Super Bowl. They'll probably lose Sneed or Jones, so you probably got to expect that. Drew Tranquil will probably be gone, like players like that, right? But I think their offense will probably be better, so it will offset. So I think the offense will be back to being top 5 instead of like top 12-ish. The defense, I think, will probably be still around top 10, but I don't think it will be like top 3. So they'll be a true contender. They'll be around. They'll be the team that everyone wants to beat. They'll be a target on their back. But you have to expect that they'll probably be in the AFC Championship. So it's going to be dependent on whether they can win in the playoffs and how healthy they are, and whether they can stay healthy, especially, a third year in a row trying to win the Super Bowl is really tough. So we'll see how the injuries take shape, but based on the roster they should have, the quarterback they have, the coach they have, they'll be a contender. The Dallas Cowboys. Because I have Washington and the Giants as trash teams, And then I also have the Eagles as sort of a dark horse. I think I have to have the Cowboys in the playoffs. I don't know if I see them as a contender, though, because, man, I just don't like their coaching staff that much. They lost Dan Quinn, and Zimmer's going to replace. I don't know if that's an upgrade or a downgrade. I think there's argument that it could be an upgrade. I think that Dak is good. I think the O-line is good, but they need to re-sign the center and the left tackle, Tyron Smith and Biadasz. The running back, they could improve, right? Could Derrick Henry go to Dallas? Could Saquon? Could Josh Jacobs go back there? Or maybe like Tony Pollard is just going to retain for a 1 year cheap contract, maybe, but they could definitely use more out of that running back spot. Wide receivers will probably remain intact with Cooks, Gallup, and CD. The offense was top 3 in the NFL, so there's not a lot that you can really improve. But there's just a matter of like Tyron Smith's getting older, Zach Martin's getting older, Cooks is getting older. I really like Ferguson at tight end. The defense could arguably be better if they can, be healthy at corner. Trayvon Diggs should be back and be really, really good. He was a huge loss. Safeties are solid, although they could lose one of them. The linebackers could improve. The defensive line in the interior, Mozzie Smith enters his second year. Maybe he gets better. You've got Parsons and you've got Lawrence. So they've got a lot of talent, but they need to pick their spots wisely because they don't have a lot of cap to really work with. The coaching staff is kind of vanilla, kind of, average. I don't really think it gives them a huge upside. So I think the Cowboys are probably going to win their division with like 10 or 11 wins, but I don't necessarily see them going very far once they get to the playoffs. The Chargers. The Chargers are tough because on the surface, I think a lot of people will simply project them to make the playoffs because they've got Herbert and they've got Harbaugh. I don't necessarily think that's fair though, because they do have some aging players. They do have a lot of questions from a cap standpoint. And, they need to determine, okay, what's going to happen at running back? What's going to happen with, Mike Williams comes back, hopefully healthy, but Keenan Allen's getting older. Quentin Johnston's an absolute bust. He sucks. What is that? Tight end, what is that? Defensively, who can they count on? Joey Bosa, is he going to come or is he going to go? Is he going to get traded? Derwin James, is he going to remain healthy? I don't know. There's a lot of questions. But that being said, the Chargers do have Herbert, and they do have Harbaugh, and they do have Allen and Mike Williams, and they do have Rashawn Slater, and they do have at least one good edge rusher, and they do have some nice secondary pieces, and I think the culture will be a lot more stable. I think the coaching will be a lot better. I think Herbert is awesome. So because of that, I think they'll be in the mix, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to be right away the success that people think. So I think they're a dark horse with the upside of playoffs. I don't necessarily see them as a contender or a favorite. So I'm going to put them in the dark horse for now. The Jets, this is the trickiest team in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is expected to be back, but how good is he going to be? How long is he going to survive? Coming back from an Achilles injury at damn near 40 years old is going to be tough. But we'll see if his, drugs work out for him. The offensive line is absolute garbage. They're going to have to improve that. The offensive coordinator is a bona fide idiot. So I don't know if they're going to improve that. Garrett Wilson is an absolute stud, and I feel bad for him at this point. Breece Hall is a weapon. That guy is a top 3 or 4 running back in the NFL. I think they've got enough at tight end. They need to improve their secondary receiver options. They need to just get everyone healthy and back on defense, and they're a top 3 to 5 defense in the NFL. I'm not worried about the defense. But Salah's an idiot. Their culture is sour, and I don't know what I feel about it. The offensive coordinator is an idiot. The coach is the quarterback's an egotistical maniac. So overall, I think they're just going to be super disappointing. I think they're going to be really talented, but they're going to be mid. The Panthers. I don't need to say anything. Bryce Young, I don't really believe in. Dave Canales, I kind of feel like he had to accept this job, but I don't know how good he's going to be as a head coach. I like him. I think he's better than Frank Reich and better than what they had previously, Matt Rule. But I don't know, man. The offensive line needs a lot of work. The receiving core needs a lot of work. The defense needs a lot of work. They need an edge rusher. They need linebacker. They need corner. They need safety. They need everything. So, like, this team's a long ways away. And I don't necessarily think Bryce is the type of quarterback that can carry a less than stellar offense or team. So I view them as one of the worst teams, once again, in the NFL. Sorry, Panthers fans. Tennessee Titans are trash. First of all, they're going to downgrade at head coach. I think that's a guarantee. The defense needs work in the secondary. Al-Shair's a free agent. The pass rush was underwhelming last year, but I like some of the pieces. They should get healthier on defense. The offense needs a receiver. They need an offensive line, like a complete offensive line. They need a lot of pieces. They'll probably be the worst team in their division next year, without a doubt. And I don't really think they have a quarterback. Like Will Levis, I think he's interesting, he's intriguing, but I don't think he's the answer necessarily. Or at least we don't know that yet. The Colts, this one is really dependent on what we think of Anthony Richardson and whether or not Anthony Richardson can be healthy for an entire season. I think he's really talented. I think he has a lot of upside. He's super physically gifted. Showed some flashes early last year. The offensive line is good. I like Shane Steichen a lot. I like his play calling a lot. Michael Pittman should be back. Jonathan Taylor should be healthy. I don't really love the other receivers. Downs and Pierce are fine. I don't think they're anything special. Maybe they could use a tight end. The defense, they need to work on corners, safeties, maybe interior defensive line. So the defense needs a lot of work, but the offense could be really fun next year. This is tough. They're somewhere between, I think they're a good dark horse team. I think that's where I'd put them, and I'm going to adjust this in the end to make sure we have the proper amount of teams in the playoffs, but I have them as the dark horse, but I could certainly see them making the playoffs. So we'll think about that for a second. Jacksonville, here's my problem with Jacksonville. They don't have a lot of cap space, and their roster is actually kind of underwhelming. Like, Josh Allen's a free agent. They need to re-sign him. I think their secondary is pretty good, but their front seven doesn't really have another pass rusher. Their defense is mid. Their offense needs a lot of work on the offensive line. Calvin Ridley's a free agent, so they still need a receiver. I like Christian Kirk, who will be back. I like Travis Etienne. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is overrated. Doug Peterson's a good coach, but I don't think he's a great coach. I think they're pretty mid, honestly. So those are the rankings. Let's go through it. So we've got 3 Super Bowl favorites. We got 2 in the NFC and 1 in the AFC. We've got 3 contenders. So let's just go to the AFC first. So we got the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens. That's 4. The Texans, that's 5. So we need 2 more teams in the playoffs. If I had to choose right now, I'm going to go Chargers, Colts. And then I'm going to go for the NFC. We've got Lions, Niners, Packers. That's 3. Falcons win their division. That's 4. Cowboys, 5. Let's put the Rams, as long as Stafford's healthy. And let's go with, I kind of feeling Seattle a little bit. I'm going to go Seattle. That's what I'm going to go with. Ben, I don't know who, I could put Tampa there, bro, but I don't know. I could see Tampa doing it again. I honestly want Tampa to make the playoffs again, but I do think that they'll probably be a new team. I just have to put them in the playoffs because some team from that division has to make the playoffs. I'm actually going to move. Miami is I don't know, bro. They could be dark horse. They're the best team in the mid category. If I had to order this, I'd probably go, you've got to favor Kansas City, put San Francisco second, Detroit third. I'd probably put Cincy, Buffalo, Green Bay. Then you've got, I think, Baltimore, then Houston, then the Rams, Atlanta last, Seattle right before that, Colts, Chargers. Dark horse wise, I'd probably put the Eagles, then the Browns, then the Steelers, then the Bears. Mid, I'd put the Dolphins. I'll just move the Dolphins here. I think that's fair. Dolphins, Saints. Okay, let's see what order I'd put this in. The Jets are weird because the Jets have upside. I'd probably put the Jets over here somewhere. Let's put Cardinals, Patriots last. Jags here. Yeah, that feels about right to me. Then trash, I'd probably put Carolina, Tennessee. Actually, yeah, Washington. Let's put the Raiders here. Something like that. All right, guys, that's it. Those are my tiers. That's my order. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. Get those likes up. It allows me to know what content you guys are vibing with, jiving with, enjoying. And we will see you soon, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment in the comment section below if you're watching this after the fact, what you think of my tiers, what you think of my rankings. Thank you so much for watching. It's Mitch, and we'll see you soon. Deuces!